a key leader meeting on Monday. I wasn't able to attend, but I do have a follow-up that CTC is going to be doing a parent survey in conjunction with the Davis Behavioral Health. And so that survey will be coming out, and we'll have a QR code as well as a flyer that I'll be sharing with you all, just to help us get information from the parent side on how to best support our coalitions. So it's in conjunction not just with our CTC, but all the ones in Davis County. So that'll be coming up, and any other follow-up that you guys ever want on that sharp data, let me know. Happy to share it.
The Parks Department's closing the bathrooms at Andy Adams. They're going to be building a new one, so there will be portables there.
Yeah.
So anybody that plays pickleball and that, they'll have fun in the portable. And they're also hiring. Sorry.
That was one of
I
those
didn't want to
just-
ask what that fun was.
I used to. Never mind.
Just stop, yeah, just
Right.
stop.
Yeah.
And they're also hiring 14 years and older in a myriad of things, scorekeeper, umpires, all kinds of stuff, amphitheater tech. That's a fun one, by the way. Arts in the park, and tennis instructors. That's a hard one. A lot of people play tennis, and it's hard to get people.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then I think that's 16 and older, they got seasonal, and then the lifeguards, they're always looking for lifeguards, 15 and older. That's all I got.
I do have, it's actually not a committee report, but I did receive a phone call from the vice president of the Utah Farm Bureau, Tyson Roberts, recently. I was hoping Weston would be here. He had sent Weston an email requesting an ordinance exemption for pumpkin stands. Currently, the ordinance states that the stand actually has to be fenced, so it incurs a cost for the grower to rent fencing for 2 months and stuff like that. So looks like Alex wrote that down, so just follow up with Weston to respond to Tyson's email.
You know, along those lines, I know that has been an issue, because I even got a call from John Green and his guy that does pumpkins as well. It's, by the time they grow them and try to sell them, it's too costly for them to go and put enough fencing and nothing to do.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that, but I'll follow up with
Yeah.
a question.
My opinion is that's such a seasonal, short time.
Well, usually don't they just, it's more of a go pick your own?
But that's the problem, all of those fields have gone away now, so there's only a few that are still growing, and
Okay.
people want to buy them, and it supports our
Sure.
local,
Yeah.
what few local farmers are.
Yeah. The other thing, and this is more of a comment, Lon did a presentation last council meeting on the East Gate, and he provided a little history, and I think history is important, and there's probably only 2 people in this room that know just part of the history, myself and Alex. Kind of how the East Gate, and I think this would be good for the council members and staff to know this, kind of how the East Gate came to be, and how Wasatch Integrated and former Mayor Jerry Stevenson instigated this. So the property became available, and there's actually 2 components to this. The property came available by the urging of the Wasatch Integrated Board, Jerry's urging. They look at creating a larger buffer around the waste energy plant, burn plant for people that, and that with the theory that kind of to protect that for more of a commercial zoning, and that the waste energy plant could provide energy, mainly steam energy, to businesses that kind of located in there. So that's how that came to be. The board adopted, pushed the issue. I think it was around 2000, if I remember correctly, is when that transaction took place. And then a little bit long after that, I think it's 3500 East. So this is the road that goes to the East Gate Hill Air Force Base. Hill Air Force Base was looking for an East Gate entrance to their facility to access the new hangars that they were building. So again, I think if I remember correctly, Jerry was still the chairman of the board. The landfill brought over their heavy equipment. Layton City Engineering Department did all the engineering. And if I remember correctly, this was still unincorporated Davis County at the time. Landfill staff did all the rough grading, brought it to not quite too grade, but close. And then Layton City, if I remember right, Alex might correct me on this, but I think they contracted with a contractor to come and finish the grading and actually pave the road to the East Gate. And that was kind of to help Hill Air Force Base to position them to have that entrance and stuff like that. So I think that little bit of history, the history on lawns started in 2007. I thought it'd be important to look back a little bit of how that property came to be. Jerry's philosophy was he was concerned that that would become residential, and that so he really was pushing, trying to protect some property for more of a commercial base and industrial and stuff like that. And then the only other question I have, and I'm going to pull the rookie card that I'm the rookie on this team, is a few council meetings ago we went over the council's goals for that. I know Alex was taking a bunch of notes. I was hoping maybe the next council meeting you could update us on where we're at, on if staff's working on those goals or looking into them. Hopefully get some feedback of where we're at on that. But I don't. Planning Commission, there was one item, went real smooth, did some additional training to the commission, and so pretty quick meeting last Tuesday. So, and that's it.
Okay. Do you have anything? Okay. All right. That was good reports. We did kind of have some discussion on it. You know, being that we have our fire chief here, we need to acknowledge the fact we had a lot of promotions or acknowledgements in the department, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, we did that on Tuesday. We did it on, we did a badge pitting ceremony for our 2 new deputy chiefs, a battalion chief that filled one of the roles, captain that filled that role, and the 2 engineers that all moved in. And we also had a little thing for Kendall that morning, and then we had a little thing for Kendall that afternoon, because March 31st was also the anniversary of which was the 26th anniversary of Kendall's death. And so, but we had a good thing in the morning, and then I ruined the mood by talking about Kendall, and then we had a real good thing in the afternoon, and it was very hot. And then we also do something every March 31st at 10 o'clock, yeah. And we had a tribute out there. We also scared a few people, and it didn't even cross our training people's mind. I sent that email out to, have everybody remember at 2200 deducting. Well, some of our city staff was listening to the Scanner radio app, and they heard what was training going on at that. We were training at 1500 North Hillfield Road in an abandoned building, and we're doing our May Day March training, and they were listening to May Days being called out, and they were thinking that we're having another one on the same anniversary night. They were nervous enough about it that they brought it to my wife the next morning saying, "Is Scott okay?" And I was like, boy, if I have that going on and I slept through it, there's no way that I'm going to stay in this job. But no, we had a very nice afternoon and a very good tribute to Kendall. So thank you for bringing that up.
That's good. Well, training is what it's all about too. So,
Yeah.
But I saw the trucks over there. That was cool.
We pretty much trashed that building.
Means it's coming down. Okay. There's no other reports then? Yeah.
There's just some, maybe I give a
Absolutely.
little bit of an update, but also in response to Mike's, my recollection, you can correct me if I think that the identification of the council priorities was very general. Took a list, there was 10 or 12 of them, but I think there was a request made to try to identify from the council mayor's perspective which ones are the priorities. And we haven't seen those. We'll be happy to work on those. If there's we can bring that list back and have you identify what are the priorities. I know PREDs was always an
Yeah.
issue that seemed to be 2 or 3 people, but there was a host of others. So we didn't start down any roads being presumptuous about what the council thought was, you know, the priority of what you'd like us to work on. So we've been talking internally in staff about it, and I just said we haven't heard, but we'll ask again. So thank you for bringing that up, Mike.
Do you guys want to prioritize the PRUDs now? I mean, I know that I heard 3 of you say that, myself. Well, you guys, should we put that one down as well as
Yeah.
okay.
There was the water one that I think we should, but
Well,
we're
we've
sure
got
gonna
that.
talk about that today.
Tonight.
Yeah, we're
But,
talking about that one.
I hate pointing with Tina every time, but she did point out the access, handicap, the ADA access being on the other side. And I never noticed that, and I took a peek at it, and I went, yeah, that needs to be addressed, so they have access. For someone that spent 8 months in a wheelchair, that's really important. I know that there's probably no funds earmarked for it, but at least let's maybe take a look at this fiscal year, this coming fiscal year, doing the engineering, the design to relocate that to the front. It's just a suggestion, but it's something we should, I think, look at. So it's more
I've looked at-
friendlier access coming into the city building for people.
You know, interesting enough, I know that we have that access over there, and we only had the 2 handicap parking signs over there, and then we changed and added more up front here, and then, I don't know, I'm here off and on, and I don't see them used very much.
They don't use very much, but that you know, they meet the standards. So
Yeah.
if we want to spend money to change them, obviously we can do that, but they do meet the standards. So again, that would be a priority if the council decides it's a priority. We're happy to do it.
I can speak to that. I think my main concern was this year and also years past where we had one of the young folks from the youth court was in a wheelchair and couldn't reach the dais to participate in some of the activities. But I think we talked about maybe even just having like an indoor ramp as well that you could lay over on one of the sides. So
Yeah.
that, you know,
Yes,
if
we-
we have
microphone.
need for that, that can make it a little bit more feasible and accessible for folks when they're actually inside. I mean, the outdoor one being where it is, sure, it's an inconvenience, but it is there, so I understand that it meets the requirements. But that was my original observation was based on the inside.
Yeah, and I should know this off the top of my head, but we talked about this, I don't know if, well, Ben probably doesn't know, it's not his line of work, but Corey and I talked about that back when that happened, and we were moving forward they were directed or asked to get a ramp, a temporary ramp that should be in the closets, so I
Just
should
to make sure that we have
double
one.
check that, yeah, so that's my fault, but I don't actually know, but that was the direction, was to go ahead and purchase one of those, and then when it was needed, we could bring it out and
Yeah, they have those nice aluminum ones that fold up now that are easy.
yeah, they have to meet a certain standard,
Yeah.
of course, if they incline, but yeah, and I'll follow up on that.
Thanks.
Since we're speaking of the dais, should we talk about the mics, just for the heck of it?
Sure.
I mean, only because I know we got a fairly light agenda here, so let's, why don't you kind of explain where we're at on
Yeah,
that?
and Ed could,
Or Ed,
he's one that
yeah,
grabbed
yeah.
me, but you know, we've been having some issues with the mic system and sound system, sometimes when people call in from outside, and then just in general, there's a lot of feedback and noise, and so
Mhm.
Ed and Corey have been working on trying to find a solution, and Ed pulled me aside today and explained what we're doing. But one of the things that we think will help, and it's, we're all, myself is guilty of it because I didn't know, right, is that in order to get the best sound out of the existing system, we're looking at bringing in some new technology and trying to make it better otherwise. But what most of us do, I think, maybe just myself, but you leave the microphone up when you're not talking, and then you pull it down when it is, but it stays on the whole time. What the expert that came in that was talking about sound and mics and systems is that if we will leave the mic down all the time, because the mics are directional. You're talking into it, then it picks it up really well. If you tip it up to the sky, it's picking up the sound that's bouncing off the ceiling and coming back down, so it's not nearly as clear. And so rather than moving the mic back and forth, just reach up and push the on and off button. And most of us, myself, I never thought about that. But that's one of the small things in the interim that we think would help. Ed, would you clarify that if I misstated that in any
No,
way?
that's exactly what we discussed.
And then there's the person we talked to is actually our amphitheater technician who knows everything about
Jay?
audio and direction. And
Yeah.
not Dave.
No, Jay, you said Jay.
I thought you said Dave. I said
No,
lots.
no.
Neither Dave.
I just bought my own mic and carried it around.
Yeah.
Okay, it was directional. Everybody heard me when I yelled.
Yeah. So anyway,
The only thing that you have to do is, and I'm gonna be the guilt, is when you pull it down to talk, turn it on.
Exactly.
And
I
then turn
mean,
it back
you
on.
gotta, it's another step, but
Yeah.
that's the way it should be.
But all these years, we've never done that.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's
So,
such
yeah.
a simple thing to correct it.
Well, and a lot of times just with the way that council meetings work is it's assigned to you that we want to speak.
Yeah, that's
That's
true.
what it really is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right.
And so as long as you do that, you just have to make sure you turn it on.
Yeah, I'll have to watch with hands now. Okay.
Could you put little
We can
flags?
let's test it
Could you
tonight.
put little flags on them so you just flip and it goes up?
Absolutely.
But getting some of the new technology and some of the mixers and stuff that are
Yeah.
upgrading those will definitely help. We've got a lot of systems, that's the wrong word probably, but tying in and
Yeah.
coming out of a single system, you need to bifurcate those. And so you don't have crossover and voiceover and all the kinds of things that can disrupt the sound. So we are working on that, and that's doing a good job on that. The other thing I wanted, this is part of an update.
Yeah, go for it.
Dominate the meeting, but just to give a quick update, I was gonna do it at the end, but you may have time now on the TRZ ground. That ground has sold. The
Oh,
auction
good.
closed. I think it's public, right? Well, I was looking at Weston's not here, I guess. But it's been on the website, but the Wright Development Group, who's a local developer we have experience with and good experience with, are the ones that had the high bid. And they currently have a 24-hour due diligence period, ends this evening, to make a final determination of whether they want the property. And they've reached out to some of our staff and asked some questions and so forth, but they were the ones who've been interested consistently, had some of the contacts with grocers and others up there, so we're pretty pleased about that.
Yeah, that's good news.
They have to put a pretty significant down payment down that's non-refundable if they walk away, so like I said, they've been trying to do their due diligence today, but we're hoping that will hold. And that was very good news, and we wanted to pass that on to you. We know you've been anxious about it, and they're anxious to, if it holds, to begin working with the city in earnest to try to move forward with development up there, so that was very positive.
Just out of curiosity, did UDOT lower their price?
Yeah, what they did is they put in their specs and the bid specs that informing the buyer, this is what they had before,
Right.
that there was an expectation that they were gonna do a certain number of units that are quote-unquote attainable
Well, yeah.
housing. And so then they just let the market, they didn't specify it was gonna be reduced by this amount or that amount, they just let it play out in the market.
Oh, okay.
The number, probably won't say it, but the number that they sold it for was quite a bit higher than I thought they would with that reduction.
With the reduction.
So I think the market, Rob White, Region 1 Director, was kind enough to call me and let me know. Weston had already heard about it and gave me a heads up, but Rob reached out and just said, wanted to let you know it did get sold and this is who got it, and this was the price. And I said, well, it seemed like that was a little more than what you were anticipating. He said, yeah, it wasn't nearly the reduction we thought that UDOT would be giving up. It was less than half of what they talked about. So they felt very good about it from being responsible from the UDOT perspective and managing the resources of the
Right.
state and so
Sure.
forth. And obviously the development community felt good
Yeah.
about it. So
They wanted it.
they felt like it was it all worked out well despite all the fits and starts
Yeah.
along the way. So
Well, that's
just want you
good.
to be aware of that, and
Oh,
we'll
that's good.
press that forward and keep you informed as it progresses.
Good news. Okay. There's no other updates, then let's go ahead and turn the time over to Tracy for our budget discussion.
Okay.
Mayor, members of the council, glad to be here tonight. During our all-day budget meeting, I took a few minutes and talked about property tax, and talked about would it be appropriate to impose a property tax rate increase in this budget year, or what type of a theory would we want to have as a city, you as a city council, related to property tax. And so I thought it would be important, because of the House bill that passed, House Bill 236, to give you an update of the requirements of that, because it cut the timeline for your ability to make a decision on that. And so I put these together a few days ago, and so I apologize if I kind of read through them a little bit. But basically what that House bill states is that in the meeting where the tentative budget is presented, an executive officer has to state that the tentative budget includes a property tax rate increase, and they must present a property tax impact schedule. I have some details about what's included on that. And the meeting agenda has to include a separate line item notifying the public that the above statement is going to be made. So basically, I would have to get up and state in the meeting, it doesn't have to be a public hearing, but in the meeting, that the budget has a property tax increase in it. And so they just want it to be made very clear to the public that that's there. This stuff's a little bit repetitive, so I apologize, but on or after May 1st, but on or before June 1st, we have to state in a public meeting that our tax rate is going to exceed the certified tax rate if the tax increase is approved. We have to present the approximate amount of revenues that would be generated by the increase, the approximate percentage increase, and we would have to follow all the other noticing and hearing requirements if we decided to proceed with an increase, and most of that takes place in July and August timeframe. On or before June 30th, we'd be required to prepare and adopt an interim budget that includes the property tax increase, includes a separate schedule from the budget document, that's the tax impact schedule, and at the public hearing, or that is at any public hearing where we discuss the general fund budget, we would have to present that property tax impact schedule. And then we would also be required to set aside in a restricted budget account, an amount equal to the estimated tax increase. So you can see there's just like a checklist of things that we're going to have to do if we want to do a property tax increase, and we cannot spend or obligate the revenue until after the final budget adoption, which would be at the end of August. And there's detailed schedules of communication and county notification and public noticing and that kind of stuff related to property tax increase. The property tax impact schedule would include the dollar amount of revenue generated, the estimated percentage increase, the estimated percentage increase in the amount paid on an average residential property. That next one should have said commercial, average commercial property. It would also need to identify the department budget that would increase or decrease, and articulate the department impact if the taxing entity approved the tax rate increase. Now, in our case, in the budget as it's put together for 2027 right now, a property tax increase would simply reduce the amount that we are proposing to take out of our reserve. It wouldn't have a direct effect on any particular department at this point. The point of the discussion during the all-day meeting was that as of right now, we're budgeting, in order to cover everything that we need for 2027, we're budgeting to use some of our reserve. And this is a method that we could use to lessen that amount over time. You know, say we were to do a 3% a year or 5% a year and grow that property tax, then we would hope that, one, we could either keep up with inflation in this form of revenue or start to reduce slightly that amount so that it's more balanced. Now, for maybe as long as Alex has been here, as long as I've been here, and he's talked about this before, the reason our budget always budgets to spend reserve is because we like to have the cash in hand, and then we look at the projects that we can do, and so we spend out of our savings account basically for one-time projects. And that's a good way to do it, right? That's not how everybody does it, but that is a good way to do it. Anyway, the most important thing to get out of this little discussion tonight is that if, as a council, you want to consider doing a property tax increase for fiscal year 2027, which starts July 1st, we have to make a decision about that before I present the tentative budget, the first meeting in May. So I felt like it was important that you know today, first meeting in April, then perhaps we can discuss, is that even on, the realm of possibility for this year? Because if we get to the day of the first meeting in May and we haven't made any kind of decision, well, that's our decision, is that we're not doing anything with that. So, anyway. I wanted to bring it to you so that you had the timeline and the importance of that. Do you have any questions about that?
Are they saying you have to increase it by a certain percentage?
No, that's completely
No,
up to
that's
you.
our.
Okay, so
That
it's-
one where they put limits and things on it,
Yeah.
there was one out there, none of that passed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, none of that passed. Most of the stuff, this passed, where we have to now tell people sooner, and which we would tell people that, this just forces you to tell people. Whenever we've had a property tax increase at the tentative budget, we always talked about it. So, but this forces you to put it on the agenda as a separate line item, so that if people looked at the agenda, they would say, oh, they're gonna talk about a property tax increase, right? So, that's what it does.
When was the last property tax increase?
The last property tax increase, I believe, was in 2023. That one was related to, actually, that was a decrease. I think it was 2022 with the 2021 or 2022 with the fire station. So we had funds to build the fire station, but for a number of years, we didn't have the funds to put people in the fire station.
Make it operational.
Right, the ongoing operational costs. And so in order to do that, the council approved a 17% property tax increase. And that funded.
17?
It was 17, yeah.
That was the, 19, 20, or 2021 budget? Because we weren't here yet.
Yeah, you guys came right after.
We were right after it.
Yeah. I think, from memory, I may be wrong, but I think in at least the time I've been here, I think there've been 2 property tax increases over
Yeah.
35 years. So
Is it?
Layton has a long, long history of not doing property tax increases, good or bad, but it's.
So we did one
very-
decrease.
Yeah, there's been more decreases than there
We've
is
done a decrease.
increases.
So obviously, just the way this bill is written, people aren't typically doing property tax increases to fund their balance. They're doing it for some sort of departmental budget or something like that. So does the legislation actually identify that we can do it just for fund reserves? Or does it have to be for something departmental budget?
You can do one for whatever you want.
And
I mean,
if I
it's-
remember correctly, in our all day.
I mean, we could easily say that, well, our property tax doesn't cover anywhere near the cost of our fire department or our police department. And so we need a property tax increase. Or for that matter, it doesn't even cover the annual increase in those two departments' wages.
Yeah.
And so you could say, I mean, you can word it however you want, right? You could easily say, well, our police department needs a wage increase, and if we don't do a property tax increase, they won't get one.
Mhm.
Now, that would be a whole different decision, right? And we aren't saying that that is the decision.
Yeah.
But I'm imagining that's what cities could do, right? Is they would say, well, we're gonna do a 3% increase, it's gonna cost $1.2 million. And in order to come up with $1.2 million, we need a 15% property tax increase. And if we don't get one, and a lot of cities operate this way, then we will reduce the department, right? Well, that reduces service to the community. So that may be what they're implying here.
Well, you can just tell the people's baseline property tax is based on some sort of project that they want to do, or something departmental, not just we are using our savings and we need to make our savings bigger, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, that makes sense.
Okay, good questions. Anything else?
Why, you had a question, did we answer it?
Tracy actually answered it.
Okay.
So, no.
Okay.
It's interesting, like Tracy said, not to belabor it, but in the all-day budget meeting, is there some entities that run those, that hold those, they don't do property taxes increases, but at some point they probably did because they run their reserve balances up to the 35%. Now it's been dropped back to 20, but they're carrying that much capacity, and they got it probably through taxes over the years. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And just hold on to it and let it sit there, as opposed to putting it
Right.
to work. So it's interesting, the approach that gets taken, kind of a one-size approach that doesn't fit equally to all the cities, which is always the case, not good or bad, but, and so I think you guys are clear. We're not suggesting you should or shouldn't, we just wanted to make you aware, what Tracy did, whatever those discussions are, this has an impact now in the timing, or and it has to be done earlier than later, or it takes away the opportunity to make the decision. That was the purpose in bringing it. So, not to suggest a good idea or a bad idea, that's totally up to you. But
We're still aiming the same way, right? Not
Yeah,
tax.
I don't think
I
so.
don't think we need to.
And I think conceptually, in some ways, having it like better to do it 3% every year than to have it be, 15% in 5 years or whatever. But I also don't think that's really how government should be operating. If I'm being, my opinion is that if you're building in an increase, then there's always an assumption that the money's going to be spent in some way. And I just think at the end of the year, we decide, at the beginning of the year, we decide, what does it look like this year? And I don't think the assumption of a property tax increase, even if it makes it easier over, on people's pocketbooks.
Thing of it
I
is, though,
just- I
once you
just don't
start
thi-
that,
Yeah, I don't like that as
you're
a.
always spending that money before you
Right,
collect it.
that's what I'm saying. The assumption is, I get it from like an accounting standpoint, but I just think from a public entity, I just don't think it's good. And I think we've done, to your credit, Alex, for long periods of time, we never really had to do that.
Right.
Now, our budget meeting was a little eye-opening, because it's the first time, at least since I've been here, where we are living within our means, we do things the right way, but the money's
Still not
there.
enough.
Right, which is the first time in 7 years I've seen that happen. And so I think it's something that, even though I'm maybe, my own opinion, not in favor of doing some sort of tax increase this year, but I think it's definitely something that we have to
Look
at least have part of the discussion moving forward, because it isn't because we are trying to splurge and spend money we don't have. It's really just, the nuts and bolts of running a city, the salaries and the benefits and things of that nature, that are getting to a point where maybe we have to look at something alternatively that we haven't had to look at before. So that's where I'm at.
I just think on a educational basis, I think I brought this up a couple of years ago too, just with the truth in taxation and just the practice of doing it. Not that you're gonna increase or not, but getting ourselves familiar and also the public familiar and, with the process itself, instead of just always having a negative connotation behind the increases, because we know that, what's your motto, Clint? Cities exist to provide services, right? But there does get to a point where what we have can't support the services that we are providing or that we should be providing. And so just about educating the public on what the property tax really is, how much cities, play into that. And I think those are things that we as a city can help with on a regular basis.
To that point, and maybe this is a legal question, but truth in taxation is an actual legal procedure, right, that you have to follow if you are intending to raise taxes. But is that something that you can do if you are not raising taxes? Because there's an extra hearing, there's extra notices that go out.
Well, the problem you would have is that you would come at, this is my opinion, you would come at it from the approach that you were going to raise taxes. That would bring somewhat of an unnecessary negative light if you actually didn't intend to, right? And so, although I agree with the approach of educating, I think that it would bring an unnecessary scrutiny, because if you're not going to go through the process if you aren't thinking about it, because you have to tell the county, they have to put out advertising, and the advertising's not going to say zero.
Right.
They wouldn't approve to put it on there.
And I guess,
Right.
and that was my opinion, and maybe just to your point, Bettina, maybe it's just that we need to ramp up the discussion around the budget meeting altogether.
Right.
And not just have it be, make people aware. I mean, we've joked about this, that, we have a issue about, a dog park or something, and we have a bunch of people show up, and then we have $100 million budget on the next line item, and everybody leaves and there's nobody to discuss it. Maybe that's the education that we need to do. Because I think it's important for people to realize that they have a say in these things, and that we don't want to just see them when there's a property tax increase, that we'd like to have them come. But in some ways, I'm not sure we can create that kind of desire
The thing of it is,
outside of what we already do.
if you do that, then it's kind of like crying wolf. People won't pay attention when you do
Right.
have to do it, right? Because they're going to say, oh, they're just doing that because they want to, they do it every year. And then when we absolutely need to increase it, they'd say, well, we didn't know. So it's a catch-22 all the way around.
I'm less concerned about people saying we didn't know because we're providing information. I think it's better to be proactive, and, I appreciate the clarity there, just on not having to have it if you're not going to increase. But I think whatever we can do to help the general population understand what all of this means. And this was really came to light more and more during this legislative session, right? Where you have all of these sound bites from other areas and other entities, and people are literally kind of crying fire when it's not really that. And so that's the issue that I have with it, and anything we can do to help educate on what something is versus what something is not. We want people to come in, and people have been coming in and talking about whatever is on their mind, which is great. We welcome all of that. I just know that generally when people hear tax, their immediate reaction is no. And instead of your immediate reaction being no, your immediate reaction being why. And so I think that's on us to be able to educate and give them a why. And if we start that early, not that, we're raising taxes today, tomorrow, whenever, but a 17% tax can be marketed in any particular way. And when you say 17%, everybody's gonna be like, what? Because I would. When you say a 3%, I'm like, okay, let me think about that. Where is it going? What does it mean? And so while it's good that we haven't raised taxes in 35 years, but 2 times in 35 years, in that year that you do raise them, and the tax is 10% or 20% or whatever it is, that becomes a sticking point. And kind of to Zach's point earlier, maybe, after that 17% tax increase came about, some folks didn't get reelected. Well, it's not necessarily their fault, right? Like, you shouldn't be holding that over people if what they're doing is trying to make sure that the city can still run. And so that's where I'm coming from on the education piece, because folks can have their opinion, which is fine, but facts are gonna tell you it takes this amount of money to fund all of these things that we do. And we have more people here than we had before, and more people who are coming, and all of that adds up. So anything we can do to be proactive.
To your communications point, I mean, the idea of allowing the city in some sort of, infographic or communicative way and showing, here's where your tax money goes, and to your point about having it not be reactive, to saying, we're showing you what we're doing and we're not asking for an increase. Because most of the times they only say, here's what we're doing and this is why we're asking for more.
Right.
It would be nice just to say, here's what we're doing and we're not asking for more. We just want you to show you where your money's going and where it's going. Because I always felt when we get our executive documents for the budget and see where all the money's going, it's really eye-opening. And I'm sure you even said that too, once you get kind of behind the scenes and you see like all that goes on in the city, all that's funded, all the projects, it's pretty amazing. And I think if we could find a way to communicate that, not in a defensive posture, like
Right.
we're just trying to defend our ability to do anything, but to show like here's what your
Here's what it
tax
That's right.
money is paying
Yeah.
for, all these amazing services. So I think that could be something that I'd like to look at for sure.
The Utah League of Cities and Towns has put aside some money to create a series of truth and taxation and property tax videos. They're going to be short snippets of what you're just talking about. So I imagine if we could take those and then explain how it works with us,
Yeah.
would be,
Yeah.
That'd be
so
good.
that's something to look forward to. That's going to be now because of this. They wanted to get this information quick to the cities, so that should help.
They also asked us some things during the session, and I remember specifically putting that in an email, so hopefully they are doing that with other things too.
Yeah. But that'll help. We'll talk about how much goes to cities and truth and taxation process.
And it'll also help us in our bridge meantime until we have access to a communications person.
Whoa.
Okay.
Pretty good.
Great.
That's-
Anything
I like
else?
that.
I have a couple other slides to go over with
Okay.
you, different things. Just so tonight, a few of the enterprise funds, I didn't have a chance to get through all of them, but wanted you to see where they're at. 2025, the water fund. Now, the bulk of this got committed into projects. You can see there's a lot of projects that were still carryover into 2026. It wasn't that we budgeted them all right there, but they carried from 25, this 16 up to here. And so when we get to the end of this fiscal year, I would estimate that we'll have about 17 million in the water fund available. And then for the 27 budget, we have another 11 million in projects out there, and we'll end up with about 10.7. Now that number's a little lower than perhaps, well, I don't know that I talked about it at the all-day budget meeting, but you can see here that the revenue estimate, just based on, and I think Steve will talk about, conservation and what Weber Basin Waters said lately. And so just as I put this information together, I put together this, the revenue will come down. If we looked at the consumption, here was the last time we had, our revenue was running up in this area, and then the mayor and the council through the conservation campaign, got that down. Where'd my thing go? Got it down, but the problem with, well, I guess it's not a problem. It's a problem for me.
Yeah.
It's a fiscal
But
problem.
when consumption goes down, the revenue goes down, and it goes down a lot. And, then it's gone back up a lot because people aren't conserving as much the last couple of years in wet years. That would go back to this fluctuation, right? Going from 14.3 to an estimated 12.9. I mean, if we truly had a 20%, that's only about a 10% cut. If we actually had 20% reduction in revenue, that's another, $1.5 million. So that'd take our reserve down to about 9 million. And you think, well, 9 million, that's plenty. Well, we've managed to spend a lot on a lot of projects, and there's a lot of projects out there still. And that's the reason our rate structure is the way it is. But
major one going on with the connections,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
And, you know, not to, I mean, all of you are aware that our engineering group's done a fabulous job, and you guys as well, of getting federal funding and bringing in lots of different sources to help with those projects. But here's a few slides, and I believe you have access to those out on the share all, that shows the total water use and where we're at. So we would anticipate that the 2026 water year would be, you know, somewhat lower if you do a 20% reduction, or if you ask for that. The next one out there, the stormwater fund, you can see where the position on that is. A lot of reserve related to projects that get pushed into the current year as well. Under these models, I just assume that all that money's gonna get spent. It won't, it'll get pushed forward to the next year, but the point is that it's already restricted for projects. And so the stormwater fund, a few years back, we raised the rates on stormwater, I believe it was 3 years in a row, by $1. And so that's helped to boost this up so that we can do the projects that we need to do. The sewer fund, you know, there's a proposed rate increase on that in this 27 year. On the city side, there was one last year on North Davis sewer side. Next year, there'll be one on North Davis sewer side. They skipped a year between their increases. And so with that, we would anticipate revenue going up in 2027. But you'll notice with the cost of the operations, which is mostly treatment that we pay to North Davis Sewer, and those capital projects that are out there, we're still, you know, eating into the reserve we have there. And even with those increases, you know, this fund's anticipated to have about $1 million reserve. So that's, you know, it doesn't have as large a reserve. Part of that being that for years and years, the city didn't raise our side of that rate. So the rate that the citizens pay is a combined rate, the rate that North Davis Sewer charges us, and then the small amount that we have to cover our operational expenses.
Correct me if I'm wrong, that's actually tied to the water consumption, if I remember correctly?
Yes, it is.
So
Yeah.
water consumption goes down.
It could
This
affect
one
this as well.
go down,
It could,
correct?
yeah. It shouldn't affect this as much, because most of that's commercial related, and most of the excess consumption is commercial related, and if it's commercial related, it's not outdoor watering related, it's product. You know, like the Smith's Distribution uses a lot of water to make their products. That's the sewer fund, street lighting, oh, go ahead.
We did the sewer impact, the fee, right?
Yeah.
Does that, and that goes to this?
I should put that on here. That sewer impact fee is, now Steve can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's so limited in what it's going to be able to do for us, but I should put it in here,
That it's
you're right.
specific to this enterprise?
Yes.
Yeah.
fund? Okay. Because I just saw it on the previous ones with impact, so I remember that we put it on there.
Okay.
Tracy would be guessing if you put any numbers in there though, because we don't have
We
any
don't have any.
real, you know, until we start seeing those permits come through, we won't know how much we're gonna collect.
Okay. But that will go into this fund?
Yeah, it will go
Yeah,
out there
okay.
in future years.
The thing with that is though, then I'll add a separate line down here that says restricted for impact fee related projects. And so it won't affect the reserve that we have for our normal projects, right? It can only go towards those that are in the impact fee facility plan. On the street lighting side of things, we can see where that revenue source is at and our expenses there. We've done a number of projects that have added up to a significant amount here. And our reserve is, you know, it was built up a little bit because we weren't doing as many projects. But now we've done those and we'd anticipate it getting down to about $500,000 in that fund.
We're still, Steve, we're still taking the old poles down. Is that
We're
for the street lighting?
installing new poles still, and then occasionally we replace an old pole once it is,
I thought we were doing something with, who owns them?
Rocky Mountain
Rocky
Power
Mountain,
owns all
yeah.
those, and so we're working on some updates for you on that, but we're not changing out all of Rocky Mountain Power's poles because they have a
Well, yeah.
lifespan on them.
Sure. No, I
And
get it.
until that comes up, Rocky
Okay.
Mountain wants us to pay that depreciation, and we don't think that's approved use to do. So we're letting them.
So a
get that
lot of
back.
the, what about places that don't have it?
That's where we're focused on.
Oh, okay.
Yes. We're
That's-
working on
Which
that
is
map.
what we talked about.
Which is
Give it
what
light up.
the idea was
Yeah.
behind it. Okay, okay.
For our refuse fund, I brought this up at the all-day budget meeting, the Wasatch Integrated increased $1. We're proposing to increase $1.35 on the first can. Haven't had an increase in that in a while related to the collection side and also second can and recycling. And so that will increase our revenue in the refuse fund. You'll see though that it still has us using a little bit of reserve. In the calculations, I did that on purpose because our reserve had grown higher than I think we needed to be in the refuse fund. I mean, we basically have 2 contracts that we cover, and then we have people that we allocate some of the cost of our utility clerks to this fund as well. They should probably allocate all their costs, because that's where most of their calls are, except on water shut-off day, but you'd be surprised how many calls we get about garbage cans. But anyway, we allocate some of those personnel costs and operations there, but for the most part, it's 2 contracts. And so we don't really need to carry as large of a reserve here. This will give us, you know, a few years, this kind of an increase until we have to consider doing it again, assuming that there isn't a very large CPI increase from Waste Management, which, I mean, they've been pretty consistent with being just whatever the consumer price index is for their industry.
Yeah.
But is fuel costs gonna affect that, where they'll come?
What was that, sorry?
Is fuel costs gonna affect that?
Fuel could,
The
yeah,
fuel
now we
surcharge
just,
fee?
I hadn't actually thought about that until you just mentioned that, because just the last, I should have thought of it, because, you know, it cost me $150 to fill my truck the other day, so that was no fun. When it went from 3 something to 5 something. So that's the sheet on the increase in the emergency medical fund. We have the revenues there. I'm not aware of any rate increases, and our fire chief might correct me after the meeting if there is one, and then I could incorporate that in here. But we do have capital projects related to the apparatus, part of the payment for the ladder truck is out of here, and also some resurfacing and other things that we discussed at the all-day budget meeting, and the equipment schedules and the capital improvement schedules. And that's gonna bring, you'll notice this one I look at cash, and I've explained that before, but I'll just like to look at cash here, and so that'll still leave us with about $1 million in cash in the emergency medical fund. And so that's that fund. So that's what I have for you tonight. The one fund, I didn't talk about the pool fund, I didn't have a chance to go through that yet. And the secondary water fund, which is, that's really not anything, it's just the contract side of it. Our actual secondary water is in the water fund, so those 2 small funds I'll bring back to you probably at the next meeting.
How are we doing on the metering for the,
We're flying.
I was gonna say, this is the year it's gotta be done.
It's gotta be done by October, by Halloween, but we're moving. The contractor has done an exceptional job since they started back up, just moving through all of the Davis Weaver area as well, and we've got a few.
Maybe at 100 or so in the old area with some different challenges that we gotta work through.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're definitely on track.
Good.
Thanks, Richie.
Okay.
Good
Yeah.
segue.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, we've got one more item left on our work meeting, which is the Safe Streets grant, so Steve Jackson will present that one.
Yeah, we were gonna do the water conservation.
Oh, done?
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right away,
Discussion.
we ended with water and I was.
Yeah,
gonna
we're
go
talking
to
about the
pool.
same
Sorry.
subject, so
Yeah. No, yeah, that's
Thank you.
number 4.
We can cover both of them.
Okay, I got 2 short slideshows here. We went to the Weaver Basin Water Conservancy District's customer agency meeting back in March. I'm gonna show a few slides. The slides with the blue backgrounds are the slides from Weaver Basin, and then I've updated those as of today with orange background slides. So if you see the orange, it's my fault. If it's blue, it's their fault. So, water supply outlook. This is what the precipitation was looking like. We were actually 100% of median for precipitation in the Weaver Ogden River as we're flying up here into March 1st, and then it flatlined and now we're down into the 40% area again. But this little tail right there, that was yesterday's storm. So keep working on what you can with who you know. Let's get this back up. So we're 90% of median. Snow water equivalent, we were 64% of median back on the 9th of March. We were 52% of the median peak, and this is the terrible one right here. So we dropped all the way down to 21% of median, 19% of peak, and again, there's our little magic tail from yesterday's storm. So we'll get another little bump from today. Hopefully we'll get another one tomorrow, but it's not looking great. It's not doomsday yet, but just be aware we're not in a spot where we want to go. So then they threw out these projections from the graphs. We were hoping that we would be at 64% of the median peak with, 50% chance of hitting this line. That's where we're going to end up potentially. If we hit the 50% line, we're going to be just kind of dribbling off here. So we're setting records. They're just not good records. So soil moisture, this is the really sad part. Soil moisture back in March was great. And if we had a lot of snow, we would have had a really efficient runoff. It was 190% of median. It's even higher right now. I mean, we're setting new records on the soil moisture side, but there's no snow to run off, so it's not going to be a great.
Do you have a 30-second reason why that happens?
It just, the ground is not, I don't think it froze like it was, and so I think the soil, it soaked into that. What was there was soaking in that remaining part, but to get up to, you can see it kind of peaks right now in May, the soil moisture, because that's when all the ground is thawing and all that water's getting in, but we're basically a month early on everything that's going on. So their runoff forecast was that they thought they were going to maybe have 49% of average for their total acre feet across their system back in March. So what does that mean? In the total basin, they were looking at a 54% storage. They have a 2-year storage, so this is essentially 1 year's worth of water. In the upper basin, it was 62%. So their average typical new storage is about 200,000 acre feet, and they are going to be maybe 100,000 in this range. But you can see those years. We had some bad years. Those earlier droughts we were talking about. I mean, 7,300 acre feet was just abysmal, and that was when we saw that really bad drought year. So
is that, Steve, is that new storage that's coming in based on the rainfall this year, or does that include their existing capacities? My understanding was we came into the year, the reservoirs were pretty healthy. Yeah. So does that take this into account, or is this independent of the existing storage?
Yeah, so this would be, they're just showing that this was what came in, not including what was already in the storage area. So they typically get 200,000 acre feet. They're anticipating from this slide up here that they might get 144,000 if it comes down the way they thought it did. Now, that was 2 weeks before we hit 80 degrees at the end of March. And
so what's the number that reflects, what's the number that reflects, this is obviously not a static number, it's going to evolve, but that with the existing reservoir capacity plus the small runoff, what are they thinking that's going to do?
So that's this number here. So currently, they had just under 200 or 300,000 acre feet in the total system. And when I say total system, Willard Bay is taken out of the number for the upper basin. Willard Bay is the lowest reservoir in the whole system. So in the upper storage, they have 202. They anticipate that at the June 1st, they would have 240. In the total system, they'd have 350. And so when you look at this, you jump over here, that puts you in the moderate for the total storage. It actually puts you in severe, for the total storage, but it puts you in the moderate for the upper storage area. And so as you look at that, you say, what are the drought triggers? And you move to this chart and you say, okay, so we're somewhere on this line right here. And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to get a 47 to 87,000 acre foot reduction in that. And so what they recommended in the meeting was that they would basically outdoor watering, we would ask for a 20% reduction. and then start the system loading in May 1st, but waiting until May 15th to water, and then a system shutdown of October 1st. What they approved was that September 15th is the end of the water season this year with all of the 20% reduction. So we're on that same trajectory with starting it up. There are some agricultural users with some water rights that are going to use it for actual ag purposes before this dates, but for all outdoor, secondary and culinary, and I say ag users, they may not need the water depending on what the rains do for them, right? And so we're prepared to deliver that water, but right now for outdoor landscaping, it's going to be May 15th. Whether you're on culinary or secondary, we're asking everybody to not water until that point. So some of the other things that they talked about are some of these incentives, and I want to touch on one of these really quickly. Well, I got a lot of words on the next PowerPoint I'll talk about, but I'm not going to read them all to you, but I wanted it to be in the slides for you guys to have when we're finished. So they are doing the smart controller rebate. It's $100. You can get a smart controller. We're finding that these are extremely effective at helping to minimize or to really maximize the watering that people are doing at the appropriate times and minimize the amount of waste that's going on. There's this low flow toilet rebate for older homes, but that's not going to get us out of a drought. And then the flip to strip has now been rolled into this landscape lawn exchange, except for people in Ogden City. So what does that mean? I just want to show this slide. It's a little busy, but this is the flip your strip applications and information. They've spent just over $800,000 on that program, and Layton City has used 48% of that dollars. Okay.
That's good.
We are not eligible we were not eligible until recently for the landscape lawn exchange. So if this demand of 48% holds, and let me remind you, or let me point out, this $387,000 is more than every other city has spent individually on the landscape lawn exchange. So if we have the same kind of demand on the flip the strip and the landscape lawn exchange, I think we could be a real big winner in all of this. But so they've spent $207 million on this landscape lawn exchange with cities that are eligible for it. A lot of that is state funded, and so what I wanted to point out is that all cities now qualify for this landscape lawn exchange in Weber Basin's area, but it is $1.25 for cities who are not haven't adopted the water-wise ordinances that are required by the state, and it's $2.50 if those ordinances are adopted because they're tapping into the state funding for that. So let me jump over and give a little bit of detail.
I just have a quick question.
Yeah.
So, what you showed us, the lawn exchange monies that were spent,
Yeah.
Layton hasn't had any of those spent yet.
No one has been eligible for the lawn exchange program because it was all state funding at that level. So there are some cities who have adopted those ordinances, and they have been using that 2.7, but we as a city alone have spent more than every city that's on this list in the Flip the Strip program.
Yeah.
So if we get enough interest in the landscape lawn, we could probably blow up Weaver Basin's program pretty good. So let me go through this real quick. I'm not going to read all the words on these slides. It's on the websites, and it'll be in this presentation for you, but there is a ton of information on the website for Weber Basin for these rebates, and then this My Water Utah is the page that has a lot of information on these incentives, but it also is where you can go if you're a Weber Basin customer to get water use information from your meter. Localscapes is a great resource Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District has put together for these low water and reduced water landscaping plans that are out there. These plans meet all of the requirements of this program for the landscape lawn exchange. And then Utah State University has an exceptional website for water efficient landscaping. They've done a ton of research on how and when and why and things on different plants. So, so
And
some of the
soils too, right?
Yeah, and the soils and how you
soils.
do that. So there's opportunities for water savings. 2/3 of the water we use in Layton City is used for outdoor landscape irrigation. The annual landscape varies from year to year depending on how much water we get from the sky, but it's anywhere from 28 to 32 inches, and we're seeing that the average use is 30 to 40% above that actual landscape need based on these meters. So we're seeing, you know, it's not just that people are using what the landscape needs, they're using a lot more than what the landscape actually needs. And so one of the programs out here is Weaver Basin's Landscape Lawn Exchange. It's intended to remove lawn and replace it with low water landscape materials, including plants, to create attractive low water alternatives to grass areas. So we're not talking rockscapes. There is nothing in this program that will allow you to just put rock everywhere. You have to put plants back in, and it's an incentive to be able to help pay for that. So again, it's available to all of Davis, Weaver, Morgan counties. We fall into this $1.25 category because we have not met one. I'll point this out. We got one requirement that if we decide to do it, we could qualify for the $2.50. But right now, all of our residents can get the $1.25. It does have to be current living grass, and then it has to be removed with a more water efficient alternative. So if you go kill your grass right now, you get nothing. So don't go out and do anything like that. Like, get improved and get in the system and then go at it however you want. So the project area's got to be 250 square feet if you're doing it with the water efficient ordinances. If not, it's 500. And again, it has to be a living lawn. You can't just let everything die and do that. So you can't replace turf with any other kind of turf. So if it's, you can't suggest doing low water turf or anything like that. It's got to be drip irrigation and plants that are part of that. So
artificial turf is
an
not
artificial turf, yeah. So you
Is
can't,
that what
you don't get any credit for impervious surfaces. You don't get any credit for artificial turf. You can't put a grass back anywhere that is less than 8 feet wide. Or in the park strips, you can't have any slopes or grass on slopes above 25%. It has to be lawn overhead sprinklers and drip systems can't be on the same irrigation valve. So you can't, there's some changes that have to happen so that you get really efficient water use on these planted areas, and that really help do that. So you do have to have at least 35% plant foliage at the plant's maturity. You got to put in trees based on a 3,000 square foot project area. If you do trees in a park strip, they have to follow the city ordinances, and then you don't get plants. Existing plants don't count towards the plant coverage unless you talk to the district beforehand. So
You can't build a garage?
you can build a garage. You just don't get money for that portion of the yard because it's.
We never have to water it.
I agree, but the program is to get people to remove the lawn, and then, you know, I think what they want to say is, hey, you know, we're trying to get you to take what was a really water intensive use and put it into the lower water intensive use, but if you're going to build a garage, you're going to do that anyway, so.
But also, a garage is not a part of a landscape
Yeah,
plan. So.
yeah, so.
You can paint it green,
Pickleball court, yeah.
put a front on it.
And so you don't get to use annual plants or flowers and bulbs as part of that coverage requirement. You've got to have 3 to 4 inches of mulch. Again, they are telling people not to remove trees, but it won't disqualify them. But if the city requires them to be planted or trees to be planted or left in the landscape, then they need to do that. Commercial properties can also apply for these programs, and if they span multiple properties, they get considered as one footprint, and then they can have up to $50,000. You have to use low volume drip systems on the new planting areas, and then there's some requirements to be able to do that. So institutional properties are qualify for this too. So any public private institutions that own more than 5 properties can qualify. It says they will incentivize up to half the project square footage for $50,000 per institution per year, but then you can apply multiple years for projects. So even residential users can come in and say, I can only do this portion of my yard, so that's the portion I want to come and ask for funding on, and then they could do all of that within the 12-month time frame, and then they could come back the next year and qualify for a different part of the yard if they want to. So it really is a great incentive to get people to do that. So let's talk about what has to happen if you want the higher incentive. you have to have an ordinance that restricts park strips from having landscaping or lawn in that area. You have to have an ordinance that says you can't have grass anywhere it's more narrow than 8 feet at its narrowest point. The lawn area can't be more than 35% in the front side yard for single-family residential. And then all these new commercial industrial can't have any areas that have lawn that exceeds 15% of the total landscaped area outside of designated recreational areas that meet those design criteria and the landscape standards. So you can have play fields, you can have areas, common areas that have lawns and things like that, but the rest of their landscaping just can't be lawn everywhere. So
Steve, there's the first three, I should know this, but the first three requirements apply to new single-family residential, or are they saying that the city needs to qualify retroactively, go back and tell everybody you've got to pull out what you've got, or are you just going forward from this point?
it's just all new construction.
Okay.
So all 4 of these actually are just for new construction. And I'm going to be honest, the only reason we don't qualify for this incentive is because we don't require these first 3 on single-family residential that are outside of PRUDs. We require all of this now in PRUDs. We require all of this for commercial, industrial, institutional already. The only thing is we don't require it on single-family in a standard single-family subdivision. So that is the only thing that's stopping residents in Layton from being able to use that. Now, this program is completely voluntary right now. I mean, unless the state legislature starts beating another drum, they're not coming at anybody saying you have to do anything yet, but they're finding a lot of success with this. And so nobody's going to go to somebody in an existing home and say, you have to go do this at this point. But we've got a lot of people who are asking, why can't I get this $250? Because that's a huge, double the money that you're getting to remove some stuff goes a long way to incentivize people. So anyway, Dave, you had a question?
On the 3rd one down,
Yeah.
lawn areas shall not exceed 35%. Okay, not exceed. If I took my side lawn and just removed it, is that okay?
Yeah, you just would have to put some growies back with some
Well,
root
yeah,
systems,
I mean, I understand that.
But what they're saying is on a new single-family
Yeah,
subdivision.
this is new.
On a new single-family home, when you go to
Right.
landscape your front yard, you
You
can only
gotta
have
have
35% of the front and side yards be grass.
Okay.
And realistically, what they're saying in the local scapes is they're saying, hey, have a central area if you want to have some lawn and design it that
Yeah.
way, and then have plantings on the sides where
Right.
it's hard to water effectively because you're narrow on your side yards and
Exactly.
things like that, so.
I'd love to do that on my front.
Steve, would
Yeah.
this kick in if we had this ordinance and someone was doing existing home and they were doing a remodel? Would they have to abide by, not for the funding, but if we changed the ordinance, would they have to abide by the new ordinance for, say, a remodel where they're pulling permits and stuff?
I don't believe it would require for just a remodel, but we gotta be careful. There's some nuances. Some people call it to construct a complete rebuild, a remodel, and that's not,
So it can be defined.
we would have to look into that and define that properly, but I do believe our current ordinance says that if you go, well, for single family it doesn't, but for other businesses, if you go above a certain amount, yes, you have to come in and meet these water-wise landscaping programs, so. The one thing I will say is this problem is not going away. Even with the meters, we're finding a lot of success getting people to kind of understand what they're using, but as Weber Basin is looking at things, they've already got ordinances that if you want to contract for new water from them, we're not planning on needing to do that, but if you did want to go contract for new water, you have to have these ordinances in place before they'll even sell you the water. So it's something that they're looking at, saying, we have a limited supply, we have a limited amount that we can allocate to people, and so we're going to make sure that it is used in the most efficient, effective way. And again, they're not trying to take away people's ability to have beautiful landscaping and lawns. That actually, some of these local scapes, if you go to their website, they really have a lot of character and a lot of things that, you know, I don't want to bag on home builders, but some of them build a lot of stuff that looks the same, and it's really the landscaping that makes the homes kind of have different personalities and characters and things, so. Anyway, that's all I have on these, but I think you guys wanted to have a little bit of
Yeah,
discussion.
thank you for that. So, I mean, the 125 to 250, I understand that our residents are eligible for the 125 and the other cities are eligible for the 250.
Mhm.
So the only money that, so the second slide that showed the funding was just state funding that was provided. So our residents are still receiving the 125. There would be some
The
residents who would
district,
qualify for that from the district.
the district is funding basically the first 125
Okay.
now, and the reason that we're not eligible for the 250 is because the other portion is coming from the state, and the state is requiring
Okay.
those ordinances.
So if we saw a table of all funding, we would be on that list. We would just be
Now.
half.
Well, now, that, we have not been eligible up to
Right.
this point because we haven't had those ordinances in place.
Okay. Because just on that, it looked like we weren't getting, like, we weren't
So the
eligible at
one,
all.
the 125 just recently
Yeah.
went in effect where the
Yeah.
city
Just-
is.
But we are.
When was
Yes.
that, Steve?
Just at this last meeting is when they announced that that was gonna happen.
And
So that-
it's
that's
May
the
1st,
district.
is that what it said?
Yeah, essentially, it's
Gotcha.
coming May 1st.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Mike and I had talked about, that I'd like to see if we could get an ordinance and at least debate it with the council and see if there's an idea of wanting to move a different route. That was one of our priorities that we had talked about before, so that's something I'd like to, you agree with that, Mike?
Yeah, I think this is low-hanging fruit that we could, help our residents save some money in re-landscaping, definitely save some water. It's a scarce resource in this state. We do, I think it was Governor Scott Matheson said we do live in a desert. So, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I think this is really low-hanging fruit for the city to act.
I can't believe a builder would consider it, thinking, if I'm buying a new home, that's saving me money in the long run, because I'm not.
Well, I
using
think
it.
before your discussion was you was worried about the burden you was putting on the brand-new homeowner.
Yeah,
It was hard enough to get into a home.
yeah.
Remember, I know that's where the thought was last time, but obviously.
I forgot.
Yeah,
they did it there.
the other thought is, if we stay the course, just for the homeowner to kind of rebut that, is they're gonna be spending money on water, and
Yep.
continue this way, they're gonna reduce their spending, they're gonna keep more money in their own pocket, that they can go spend elsewhere,
Yeah, one more thing, so just so I know conceptually, make sure I'm understanding. The reason why we don't qualify for the 250 is because we don't have those first three on standard subdivisions, which we don't have a lot of
For
those,
single-family residents.
right?
Yeah.
But the rebate is available for all of our residents.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
the
that's
incentive
the
is
pushback,
available
isn't it?
for
That's-
all of our residents. The hang-up is the state is saying, we're not going to encourage people to put in these landscapes and then turn around and have to incentivize them to remove them. We want them done right to begin with, and
I was just trying to think of how many standard subdivisions we've even approved in the last.
And I agree, and to be honest, we actually
That seems
have
a little-
some,
I can always think. of-
we have some restrictions that are, or some requirements that are actually more restricted than this on our PRUDs.
Right.
And we tried to talk about that with them, and basically, the answer is, the state law says this is what has to happen in order for you to have the state money, and so that's where we have to look at it. But I'm happy to work with Weston. I think we have a draft of the previous ordinance where this was discussed, and it shouldn't take much time to bring that back to you, and we'll work with Alex if that's the direction.
Clinton, it would-
I
Excuse
No,
me,
I was just gonna
comment.
say, we should bring it back, we should revisit it. I was one that wasn't as excited about this when we debated it last time, and I think the model's proven out to the point where now it's been adopted into the landscape exchange. I think that's telling us something. And I'm not as concerned, we're looking at this year's water. It's
This
next
is
year's
this is
water and the
ongoing,
next year's
yes,
water that
yes.
we need to give people the residents every tool available to be able to conserve, to help all of us. And so I agree with Mike about how low the fruit is hanging in the current trend, where we are right now.
And to Mike's point, we are required by the state law that is passed to bill every secondary connection by the meter by 2030. So there's not gonna be any more flat rate water anymore for anybody, and so you're gonna be spending more simply because you chose to have 100% lawn instead of whatever, and so it will
So
eventually
currently,
come out.
just rookie card again,
Yeah.
so currently, even though the new meters in place, we're not actually charging the residents by their consumption, but in 2030, the plan is to start
We
billing them by consumption?
we have to by
By-
2030. We can do it anytime before that. Our plan is with the new water master plan update is to bring back a rate structure that we will recommend to the council to adopt that will allow us to bill by those meters. We do have to send out monthly consumption information for them, but yeah.
Hey, Steve,
Yeah.
just one thing, when you and Weston like revamp the previous ordinance, could you also be prepared to speak to what opportunity we still have for new single-family residents? And I think that's what Zach was getting to, you know, the fact that we haven't approved a whole lot of those anyway, but in light of maybe revamping this PRUD, that could also come into play. So
Yeah.
I think it'd be good for us to know what actual area is still available for single-family residential.
And is there any availability, or I guess restriction, if there was some undue hardship on a homeowner or something where they couldn't put in the lawn that was required, that they could meet certain requirements, that they could get an exception, but it could still be approved as part of the program?
You mean
If that makes
putting in
sense.
more lawn than what
Yeah.
is
You're
allowed?
looking for an exception?
Yeah, just some
Yeah.
sort, I just didn't know if there was
We'll look into that, but
some
I'm
sort of
not-
hardship
Yeah,
that-
I'm unaware of any.
Okay.
but-
Because I mean, obviously, I'm obviously on the record, my opinion, but I do like the idea that if there is some sort of extenuating circumstance where it is financially
It's not cut and dry.
burdensome, that there was some way. But if that's not allowed, you can't have that parachute for that exemption, and that doesn't mean you get approved, then I'd certainly rather have it approved. But just trying to think of the.
Yeah.
And they could probably work with vendors to figure that piece out.
Real
I was
quick.
on the fence too.
Okay, we still got one more item here, so.
Just real quick to clarify something, are businesses,
There are.
they are?
They already are. I was gonna mention
They
that.
they can participate in these programs, correct?
That's my understanding. yeah.
And the ordinance that now that we passed, when we didn't pass the residential, was for business as a commercial to,
Right.
anytime they remodel or new construction, they have to.
They have to bring it up.
But no, I'm talking about the program from Weaver Basin.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there
there's
are
some
programs.
incentives for commercial.
Okay. I think it's a good idea to bring it back. I mean, obviously, we've had a lot of old residents that have existing homes that are looking to redo it, so I think it'd be a good idea. Okay, let's go ahead and now go on to item number 5, which is the Safe Streets grants, so.
Yeah, Safe Streets for All. Excited about this one. We've got a project we've been working on since 2021. We're calling it Safety Elevated, the 2200 West Railroad Crossing
Yeah, that's a
Active
good one.
Transportation Bridge.
Yeah.
I can't take credit for that. Mindy Hunsaker in our office has done an exceptional job on this, and I think, I want to say we're up to almost $20 million total that she's been able to pull in on other projects, but this one's a pretty big one for us too. So we received from the U.S. Department of Transportation a Safe Streets for All Implementation Funds Award in December. There were 6 awards granted to the state of Utah. Only one was an implementation grant. The others are all planning grants. So there were 520 some odd grants, and only 67 were implementation grants. So really big deal that we got this award. We started a feasibility study with UDOT's help back in 2021. We completed it in 2023. We looked at 4 alternatives to improve safety at this area. Just for your information, this project scores the highest on every single safety metric that there is in every one of the places we've been searching for funding. And it's not by a small margin. It's like we're way up here when it comes to trying to get this thing fixed. So we looked at an at-grade pedestrian crossing, which was just a sidewalk through there. We looked at a pedestrian overpass, a full-grade separated crossing for cars and pedestrians, and then we actually looked at whether we should just close the road altogether. The recommendation out of that feasibility study was that we should pursue a pedestrian overpass across 2200 West. So this is a rendering of the preliminary drawing, 30% drawing. You can see there's a span over the railroad tracks, and there's some certain height restrictions that we need to meet, and then we come down off of it with a ramp and then some retaining walls. This is 265 feet span, steel truss across the tracks, ramps tying in, and we'll use retaining walls to support the structure to limit the costs. And then there's also additional 780 feet of sidewalk to the north and the south that we want to tie together to get people into the neighborhood there and whatnot to make it safe all the way up to Antelope Drive. So this is a rendering that our consultant put together. So up here is Antelope Drive, and then down here is, well, obviously the south of the railroad tracks, but this would be the pedestrian bridge portion of this project. And then again, we would continue sidewalk up this portion of the road to get there. So because Wasatch Front Regional Council put together a safety action plan, we were eligible to apply for this grant. And so Mindy did a ton of work on this to put that together. But yeah, so we actually got it at 80% grant for $9.908 million. We need to come up with $2.477 million. We're working with some other partners to see if we can't get some additional support on that. But
Is one of those partners the city to the north?
yes, we're talking with them. We're talking with the county. We're talking with UDOT. There's some different places we need to look for some assistance there. But
Military city?
at the very least, we want their support because we're going to be impacting some of their residents. But yes, we're in talks with them right now. We're applying for some COG funding. We're looking at some Prop 1 funding possibly, and then there's also some funding with UDOT called TTIF that we're trying to explore. We do need to execute this grant agreement within 12 months of the awards. We have till December to get this executed with them, and then we have 5 years to complete the project. We have 3 phases that we have to go through. One is the base phase, which is everything environmental. We have to get that taken care of before we can move forward on anything else. Our final design would then be next. We're at about a 30% design right now, so we anticipate that we could really move pretty quick through that final design, and then we go to construction. So currently, if we could, get this thing signed and taken care of, what we would anticipate is we'd start the environmental and in the first quarter of 27, and then start working our way down and be finished by about the middle of 2029 with the project. We're still looking at these schedules based on funding and things like that. There might be some opportunities to get some funding, but it may not be available as soon as we would like it. So we're gonna see if we can't program some of this stuff in. But just wanted to give you an update on that. It's very rare for somebody to walk in with $10 million of a $13 million project and say, hey, can you help us out to get across that finish line? So really excited about that. Mindy's done a great job getting this moving. So anyway, I know we're short on time. Any questions?
You did great.
That's great.
Every time I go down there, it's just like,
Yeah, so it's awesome.
I do have a 3.5-minute video if you guys ever want to see it of all the craziness that goes on at that railroad crossing.
Better than
We'll
the
save that
drive.
for another day.
Yeah.
Better than the drive.
You want it on the drive?
Some of us are part of the craziness.
I don't think this video goes back that far, Dave.
We need a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, it's now straight up
Thank
7
goodness.
PM, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Thank you, Mike, thank you, Clint. We'll now go into our Hey, this is what you call spring break. Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone out to our Layton City Council meeting this evening, which is April 22nd. We're happy to have those in attendance here tonight. Yeah, our two guests, but at the same time, that's a good sign that everybody's enjoying their spring break. So, as customary, before we get going with our meetings, we'd always like to start out with our prayer and pledge, and we take turns each month, and so I'm going to turn the time over to Councilmember Smith Edmondson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to do the prayer first, and then because we have a visiting youth council member here, I've asked her if she will lead us in the pledge. So I'll ask you all to bow your heads. God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for an opportunity to come and do the business of Layton City. We thank you that we have a great city and that we have residents that are engaged. God, we thank you for our staff who helps us as a council and mayor make the decisions that are best for the people. God, we also want to pause to thank you for the precipitation we've received over the past couple of days, and we ask that you continue to do that. We ask that we'll deliberate on whatever we need to tonight, and that all decisions that are made will be done according to your will. And we thank you for all that you're doing for us and all that you're going to do. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please stand and begin. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Very good. Thank you both. I appreciate that. That was a great prayer and leading us in the pledge there. What I'd like to do to start out is actually acknowledge our youth council member with us here this evening, which is London Black. And London, thank you for leading us in the pledge. But would you mind sharing a moment of your experience on the council and what school you're from? And no, and I'll have you speak into this mic. You're welcome to either stand or whatever you want to do.
Okay. I'm London Black, and I go to Northridge High, and I'm in 10th grade. I haven't been in LCYC for very long, but I've liked it a lot so far.
Okay. You ready for the July 4th holiday?
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Okay. We're going to need you. Okay. With that, I'll just go ahead and turn the time back over to the council to see if there's any municipal announcements they'd like to share at this time.
Yes. Well, I'm going to have to read them. Oh, go ahead, Mike. Did you turn on your mic? Stupid. Excuse me. Now the mic's on. Layton City Council. The Parks Department is closing the bathrooms at Andy Adams Park. There will be some portables there until the new bathroom is built. So be aware of that. They also are hiring 14 years and older, a lot of kids, scorekeepers, umpires, amphitheater techs, arts in the park, tennis instructors. The Parks Department, 16 and older, they're looking for seasonals. Surf and Swim is looking for lifeguards, 15 and older. So if you got some young kids that are looking for work to get paid for, city's a great place to work in the summer.
Okay. Anyone else?
I just have one announcement from Layton Communities That Care. We are going to begin our Circle of Security parenting classes. They'll be on Wednesdays starting April 8th through May 27th. They'll be from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Crestview Elementary School. There are different sessions for each week, and these are for folks who have kids between the ages of 4 months and 6 years old, but they are also welcoming caregivers and parents with kids of all ages to attend. So you can go to dbhutah.org to register for that, and there are a number of other things that we do during the year, and if you want to volunteer, please reach out.
Okay, great program. I love it. You guys have done a really good job with that, so thank you. Okay, I do have just two quick announcements. One is if you see any of the pinwheels or signs with the pinwheels this month, just be aware that this is Child Abuse Prevention Month, and we will have a couple of those pinwheels in our park, but certainly just help bring awareness to this. It's something that all of us need to be able to acknowledge and take a part of, and recognize that there is a prevention for this. And so we're lucky we have actually a citizen in our city that is very much intimately involved with this and has been for numerous years. She actually sits on our Parks and Rec Commission as well, Miss Debbie Comstock. So I want to just give her just an appreciation for continuing this. Okay, my other announcement is kind of again, it's an excellent program. It's something to bring awareness to, and that is our Strong and Secure Senior Fair. And this is put on by our Layton City Fire Department. We've got the Abington Senior Center involved. Intermountain Health is involved, Davis County Aging Services, Tanner Clinic. There's a number of people that are willing to help put on this fair, and this year it's going to be held over at the Layton Hills Mall a week from this Saturday, which will be April 11th, and it's really designed for the entire family. So we want everyone to come and kind of learn what you need to do to help take care of your seniors and the aging population. There'll be a lot of activities and education for the whole family and prizes. So again, that's a week from this Saturday. Yes. Sure. Go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor. I forgot to have one more announcement. So I don't know if many of you remember that our schools had a Learning to Breathe program for our sixth graders over the past couple of years. With Layton Communities That Care, we are also doing a 3-session Learning to Breathe for adults. And that will be on Wednesday, April 22nd, Wednesday, April 29th, and Wednesday, May 6th from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. And those will be held at Davis Behavioral Health, also here in Layton. We do know that our youth court kids, they have participated in our Learning to Breathe, and some of their parents have stayed and completed those sessions, and we've got really good feedback on that. Our police chief was also interested, and so this is something that's good for adults as well as for our kids, just to help with overwhelming feelings, stress, and just thinking about, mindfulness and our own personal awareness of our mental health. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, seeing that there's no more municipal announcements, I'll turn the time over to our citizen if she would have a comment or not. Okay, thank you for attending tonight. Being that there's no citizens' comment, we'll just go ahead and jump right into our consent items. We do have 2 consent items on our agenda, and of course, like I've mentioned in the past, this council can go ahead and take action on the consent items by one single motion. So when that time comes, just know that that's what they'll be doing. So I'll go ahead and start out with our first item, and Mr. Steve Jackson will give us the update on, or the presentation on the understanding between Layton City and the Royce Circle L regarding a utility connection.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. It's good to be with you tonight. For your consideration is Resolution 2618. It's a memorandum of understanding between Layton City and Royce Circle L, the trailer court over there near Cross Street, just north of Gentile. The trailer court has been doing some utility improvements within the boundaries of their development. They're increasing their fire flow capacity and some other things in there. And in the course of that, what was discovered is that our water meter is tucked right in the back corner of that property, in the back through several gates and different other areas to get to the private property line. Their sewer line also runs across the city's property. This is the parks maintenance facility. The property is owned by the redevelopment agency for the city, and then their existing water line cuts over here somewhere and possibly underneath that building to get to that point. So As part of this, it's a 4-inch line. In order to get increased fire flow in this area, improve access for the meter for the city, we've been in discussions with them to relocate the meter from the existing point here out here to Cross Street, and then reinstall an 8-inch water line that will connect and improve the fire flow for that property. We also discovered that when these utilities were put in, there was no easements established for these private utilities, and so part of this would be that the city would establish an easement on our property for the private utilities to be maintained in the future. The city would then own the meter itself and the water line out to the street and Cross Street, but then the water line would become privately owned from the meter into Circle L's property. So with that, the Public Works Department would install the water line in the meter, and then Circle L would be paying for all the materials and the cost to buy the equipment to do this work as part of this memorandum. So staff would recommend that the council adopt Resolution 2618 and approve this memorandum of understanding with Royce Circle L regarding these utility connections and the easement, and then authorize the mayor or city manager to sign the necessary documents. And what that would entail is, after the water line is installed, just to make sure there's no surprises as to where it goes, we would establish that easement after the water line was put in, and have the mayor or city manager sign that over to Circle L. Is there any questions I can answer for anybody?
Council, any questions on this? Good explanation.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we'll go on to item number B, and Ms. Jaden Sanders is going to present this item for us, and it's regarding a existing antenna facility.
Okay, thank you guys. So tonight I'm going to present on a land lease agreement between Layton City and AT&T. There is an existing cell tower and an existing land lease on this site. It's Andy Adams Park. So the original lease was originally entered into April 20th, 2000, and it's approaching the end of its term. So AT&T desires to stay on the site, and the city is agreeable to the request, but the access to the site needs to be adjusted to accommodate the construction of new bathroom facilities at Andy Adams Park. So the original access went through where the proposed restroom buildings are right there, and so it's just been slightly shifted to the left. So some key points in the land lease are that the original lease will be terminated in its entirety and replaced with this new agreement. The amount of space that they're leasing is approximately 651 square feet. They will pay rent annually, an amount of $23,704.49. And each year that rent will increase by 3%. The initial term of the agreement is for 5 years, beginning April of this year, and then the agreement may be extended for 5 additional 5-year terms. In the event of a breach of an agreement that's not cured after 30 days, the city would be able to terminate. And then upon termination of the lease, whether it was terminated early or if it just expired on its terms, the lessee shall remove the antenna facilities and restore the premises to its original condition. So city staff recommends that the council adopt Resolution 2619 to approve this land lease agreement and authorize the mayor to sign the necessary documents. Thank you.
Any questions on this, council? Again, good presentation once again. Thank you. Okay, being that there's no discussion on it, I'll go ahead and bring the items back to the council for action. Again, that concludes our consent items. So, council, whoever would like to make the motion, please make sure you state the resolution as well.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve Resolution 26-18 and Resolution 26-19 as presented.
Okay, I have a second. Who was that? Okay, Councilman Bloxham. Okay, all in favor of this action, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, you have it. That
wraps up our agenda at this time, unless there's any additional unfinished business that anyone would like to bring before us.
Yeah, if I could, Madam Mayor, there was just a request and something that maybe we could take as a city. I had Scott Wynn reach out to me, the son of Steve Wynn, a crossing guard that was tragically killed at Main Street in 1600 North, and made a request, I guess just an ask of the city if there was a way that potentially we could memorialize or honor his father by renaming that street, that 1600 North Street, in some way, naming it in memory of Steve Wynn. So I don't necessarily, and he gave a similar street, I think it was in South Jordan, I could double check that, where they didn't necessarily change the street itself because it still stayed the same on the mailing address, but they just kind of had a memoriam street in addition to the 1600 North. So it was just something that I thought I'd pass along. I take my kids to school every single day, and honestly, I don't know if there's a week that goes by that I don't think of Steve when I'm taking my kids to school and seeing those same crossing guards there, and just grateful for all of the time and time that they take in rain, snow, sleet, sunshine, no matter what, to help those kids get across the street. And it was something that really affected me, so I just wanted to pass along to the council, maybe something we as a council and as a staff can discuss, but I just wanted to pass along Mr. Wynn's request.
I'd have to say I understand that, and certainly I think we've all recognized the sadness that has brought and the importance of our crossing guards. So, Council, if you want to take the time now and discuss.
I just would like to say, I really like the idea of the 1600 North is still there just so you can find things, but to have maybe his name, I don't know how it would look underneath or whatever, but it's kind of like our firemen. You know, we don't have these things happen often, and when it does, it's not that it's more tragic than other deaths, but it's something they were doing in the line for us, and of course for all the kids. And so I think it would be well within our thought process, whatever you want to say, to do something like that. I would totally agree for it.
Okay. Anyone else want to weigh in on this, or how you feel? Okay, then I would recommend that we actually come back and make a decision perhaps in our next meeting, put it on an agenda item for our work meeting, and see if it's something that we want to proceed forward so that the staff would know how to handle this. Okay, if there's no other business or that anyone else would like to discuss, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Here, I took my note off. Said turn on the mic. I don't know if I can make a motion this early. It just doesn't seem right, but I will make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you. There's a motion and a second. I'll acknowledge it and officially adjourn this meeting on this week of spring break and the great moisture we're receiving. So thank you, everyone, for attending. And it looks like we have another person out there in the audience, so that's awesome. Thank you for being here. Good night, everyone.